Good morning, citizen scientists, and welcome to a socially distanced Citizen Science Friday. As many of you know, Solano Land Trust likes to hold citizen science activities on the second Friday of every month. Usually, volunteers of any skill level would get together with me or with one of my coworkers to do a project and learn about something on a Solano Land Trust property. I miss you guys. Our citizen science regulars are wonderful people, and I look forward every month to talking to you, working with you, and geeking out about plants and animals. So instead of missing another Citizen Science Friday, I'd like to talk to you guys about one of my favorite plant genera on the planet, lupins. I love lupins. So today, since we can't do citizen science in person, I hope you'll join me as I wander around and geek out about one of my favorite genera of plants, Lupines, the lupins. Now, many of you have probably seen lupins, but you might not know that the lupins are in the legume family with peas, beans, and clover. Now, the legume family is called the Fabaceae, or as I call it, the fabulous Fabaceae, because everything in the Fabaceae can form a partnership with bacteria to actually make its own fertilizer through pulling nitrogen out of the air and undergoing a process called biological nitrogen fixation. If you're interested in learning more about that, we can do a separate video. Just let us know in the comments. All species of lupin have very similar looking flowers. They'll have a big showy back petal called a banner to attract the pollinators, and they'll have this fused central petal called the keel, and they'll have wings on either side of the keel. And this flower shape is very consistent across all the members of this genus. I'd like to start with my absolute favorite genus of lupins. This is silver bush lupin, Lupinus albifrons. Silver bush lupin gets its name in part from its silvery looking petals. I hope this is picking up on the camera, but these leaves are actually covered in thousands of tiny silvery, silky hairs that catch the sunlight and give the overall bush a very silvery looking sheen. I think it's not coming out right on my camera, but they do look like they've got silver tips and grayer edges. And these hairs are very fine, very silky, and very soft. And they help the plant to conserve water, and they also deter herbivores a little bit from eating the plant. The second part of the name, silver bush lupin, comes from the fact that this is in fact a shrub. It's a perennial, and it will live for several years and put on a lot of woody growth. This is one of the few shrubs that are lupins that you will see in Solano County, and it's by far the most common. So if you see something with lupin-shaped flowers and a woody stem, you're probably looking at silver bush lupin. Silver bush lupin can also get up to 5 feet tall. I'm 5'4", and this one behind me here is about my height up to its true foliage, and with the flower spikes, it's a little bit taller than me. From one of the tallest lupin species, let's move on to one of the smallest lupin species. This little charmer is Lupinus bicolor, or miniature lupin. Miniature lupin is much smaller, ranking in at about 3 to 5 inches tall. And if you look closely, all of those little blue and white specks in this field are flowers of the miniature lupin. Miniature lupin flowers have the same shape and structure as any other lupin. You can see that really prominent banner petal with its contrasting spot. On miniature lupin, it's usually going to be white, sometimes with delicate little black freckles. Occasionally, you'll get these purples as the flower is maturing. But usually what you notice in the field is the bright white. Just like any other lupin species, these have the palmate leaves. And actually, these leaves are not terribly smaller than some of the silver bush lupin leaves. So leaf size is really not a great indicator for many of the lupin species. And these are also hairy, but it's a slightly different type of hair and slightly different thickness. Actually, hair type and amount is a really useful tool for identifying different lupin species. You can see that miniature lupin is hairy pretty much everywhere on the plant. And again, these hairs can help them conserve water. But when they're longer and stiffer like this, and especially with such a little vulnerable plant, they really help try to deter herbivores from eating them. Most herbivores don't like a very hairy plant on the tongue. You can see here that just like with that silver bush lupin, they start blooming at the bottom of the stem and work up to the top. They make little pods, little seed pods that look kind of like a pea or a bean seed pod. But when they're done and the seeds are ready to go, they'll dehiss explosively. So they'll pop open and they'll fling the seeds out and away from themselves. Now, these cute little miniature lupins, you'll see there's no woody material. These are usually annuals, sometimes biennials, though I haven't noticed it in our area. So they usually live only 1 year, sometimes. A field that's just covered in these miniature lupins like I have. Something fun to do is to look for any mutants in color. It's kind of like finding a 4-leaf clover. Every once in a while, you'll find a miniature lupin that instead of being mostly blue, is completely white. These flowers aren't necessarily older than the ones next to them. They're just not creating any of that blue pigment. And there's one over here that's mostly white, but has a little bit of purple on the banner, where usually you would see white. So this is something fun to do when you're hiking and you just want to take some time to reflect and relax, just poking around the flowers and seeing what unique little diversity you can find. This is butter lupin. It's one of the few native yellow lupins in Solano County. This is broadleaf lupin. You can see how much wider each of the lobes on this palmate leaf are than in some of the other species that we've seen. And it tends to be a little more on the pinky purpley side than the blue, but again, color's not a great feature. The width of these leaves and the fact that the hairs are fairly short, fairly sparse. That concludes our little lupin adventure. Thank you to everyone who watched to the end of this video. And a big shout out to the regular citizen science volunteers that we haven't been able to see during these shelter-in-place orders. I do miss you guys. I look forward every month to working with you, and I hope that you're all doing well. And if this video has inspired you in any way, I hope that when we are able to have citizen science again, you'll join us. Any experience level, including no experience, is welcome. We just want people with a positive attitude who are ready to learn. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, please let us know in the comments. And especially if you have any great lupin pictures, please share them with us on Facebook. I would love to see them. Thanks again, and please stay safe out there.